Today, to start the last message of this series, I want to ask you guys a question, and I want you guys to hear me out. Have you ever lied? Now, hold on. Hear me all the way out, because that's not the entire question. We all know the answer to that question, right? Have you ever lied in an attempt to convince someone that you could be trusted? Have you ever lied in an attempt to convince someone that you can be trusted? It usually sounds a little like this: I don't lie. I keep it real. Ask anybody about me. I always tell the truth. And this is your attempt to convince someone that you could be trusted. I have another way to ask the same question. Have you ever compromised your integrity to protect your reputation as someone who has integrity? To protect your reputation, you covered up, you left out a few details, and for some of you, you flat out lied. All in an attempt to be viewed as someone who has integrity. We all live with this pressure. I know I do, as being the pastor of this church. I live with this pressure all the time because I want you to trust me. When I get up here on this stage, I want you to trust that the words that are coming out of my mouth can be trusted. But we all live with this pressure, whether it's in our dating relationships, whether it's with our children, with our coworkers, our employers, people we're hoping to do business with. We don't want people to lose respect for us. And so to prevent that, we feel this pressure to lie, to cover up, to leave out details. To be blunt, some of you would rather be bad than look bad. See, that went over a few of y'all heads. Some of you would be okay. You'd rather be bad than look bad. Shame avoidance is a real thing, and we'll do anything we can, anything within our power to avoid shame. None of us want to be shamed. None of us want to be embarrassed. But here's the flip side. If a person is willing to come clean about something that they did and own up to it, we don't lose respect for them. We actually gain respect for them. If they're willing to come clean and come out in the open, I messed up, I blew it, I shouldn't have stole that, I shouldn't have put that in my pocket, I shouldn't have said that, I shouldn't have went there. If they're willing to come clean about what they did, we don't lose respect for them. We gain respect for them. That's what you call integrity. That's the word we've been focusing on in this series, Life in Babylon. Integrity is doing what you ought to do, even if it costs you. I could even rephrase that. Integrity is doing what you ought to do, especially if it costs you. It's just doing the right thing. We're not concerned about the reward. We're not concerned about how many people would come against us for doing the right thing. We just do the right thing simply because it is the right thing. Now, your personal integrity is personal, but it's not private. Because the effects, when there's a breach in your integrity, you're not the only one that's affected by that. It impacts the people close to you. A father, if there's a breach in your integrity, if you're not stepping up to the plate as a father and assuming your responsibilities as a father, it affects your children. If you're married, it affects your wife. If you're not married, it affects your baby mama. Women, when you are irresponsible with your bodies, you're not the only one that's impacted by that. The whole community is impacted by that. Because when you have to raise those children by yourself and you get fed up and you throw in the child and your child is running through the neighborhood, tearing up the neighborhood, the whole neighborhood is impacted by that. It's personal, but it doesn't remain private. That's why integrity used to be a universal expectation. Because we all live in the same world. We all live in the same community. If there's a thief in the community, the whole community is impacted by that. If there's a pedophile in the community, the whole community is impacted by that. Nowhere is integrity more important than in your relationships, especially in your close relationships. Because integrity is essential to relational contentment and fulfillment. Integrity determines the health and the depth of our relationships. It's impossible for us to have a healthy relationship with people who lack integrity. You can try if you may. It doesn't matter if it's your son. It doesn't matter if you're married to them. It doesn't matter if you work with them, whether you live with them. If they lack integrity, it's impossible to have a healthy relationship with them. And some of you are stuck in relationships with people who lack integrity because you're married to them, because you gave birth to them, because you live with them, because you work for them. And these are people who steal, they cheat, they intentionally hurt people, they take more than they give. And when you call them out on it, they cover up, they blame, they point fingers at people, they won't have difficult conversations. Integrity is like the oil in a machine. In a machine, you have parts that are close to each other, and they're made to work together. But without the oil in those machines, those parts can do damage to each other. It's the same with us in our close relationships. You might be made for him. You might be made for that job. You might be made for that school. You might be made for that career. But if you lack integrity, you will do damage to that person. Your lack of integrity doesn't just affect you. It also affects the people around you. And the reason for this is proximity creates the potential for friction. You are more likely to be upset or disappointed by your own kids than mine. You are more likely to hate your own boss than hate my boss. You are more likely to get into an argument with your wife, your baby mama, your baby daddy than mine. Because close proximity creates the potential for friction, which increases the demand for integrity. The closer you are in a relationship with someone, it demands integrity. I will never have a healthy relationship with my wife if I lack integrity. I will never have a healthy relationship with my children if I lack integrity. I will never have a healthy relationship with the opposite sex if I lack integrity. This is why it usually starts good but ends bad. Because you can win a person over with your looks. You can win a person over with your body. You can win a person over with your status, with your money. But the health and the depth of that relationship is contingent upon integrity. You need integrity. It's private, but it's not personal. If I don't properly raise my kids, it impacts your children. That's why it's your integrity, but it's our world. We have to hold each other accountable. You should be disturbed by what's taking place in this country. It should bother you. And we've been taught and manipulated into believing that's their business. Let them do what they want to do. That's their business. But their irresponsibility will become your responsibility. We see it all the time. It's what welfare is. Most of the people on welfare, not all, some people need it. Hear me out. Most of the people on welfare are on welfare because they've been irresponsible. They've made some bad choices. And it's not the government's money. The government doesn't have any money. It's the taxpayers' money. And so your irresponsibility becomes someone else's responsibility. It's your integrity, but it's our world. And you know this just like I know this. Over time, when people identify people who lack integrity, they start avoiding them. When they see their number show up over the phone, they don't answer it. When they see them out in public, they hope they don't see them. Because they know that close proximity means that I will be impacted by your irresponsibility. Falling in love is easy. But having a healthy marriage requires integrity. Getting a job, all you need is a good GPA and a good resume. But to keep that job and to make an impact in that job, you need integrity. Your charisma may open the door for you to help you land that business deal, to help you get that relationship, to win her over, to win him over. Your charisma may open the door for you. But to keep that door open and to make something of that relationship requires integrity. A lack of integrity will cost you in the long run. There's no way around it. You might get what you want in the beginning, but if you compromise your integrity, it'll cost you in the long run. But here's the challenge. You guys know it's a challenge to have integrity. Here's the challenge. The external pressure to compromise our integrity is relentless. In fact, there are some jobs, in order for you to thrive, we've been taught that we need to compromise our integrity. We are bombarded with ways of compromising our integrity to get what we want. For many of you, that's your way of life. That's the way you were raised. By any means necessary. I get what I want by any means necessary. But here's what's more disturbing. The internal pressure to compromise our integrity is relentless. We'll do whatever it takes to avoid shame. We'll do whatever it takes to avoid embarrassment, to avoid looking bad. We'll do whatever it takes to make ourselves look good. So when it comes to maintaining our integrity, the deck is stacked against us. But there is a way forward. And this way forward is going to depend on you. It's found in a verse that I told you guys to memorize in week 2. It's written by the wisest man to ever live, Solomon. Next to Jesus, he was considered the wisest man to ever live. He had more money than you'll ever get. He was more famous than you'll ever be. He'd been there, he'd done that. He had power. Solomon said this. He said, the integrity of the upright will guide them. The integrity of the upright will guide them. In other words, integrity for people of integrity is their guide. It's their decision-making filter. It takes all of the options and it highlights the best option because this is the right thing to do. Now we're going to unpack this entire verse. But before we get there, before we go there, I want to ask you guys this very challenging question. What guides you? What guides you? Is it popularity? Is it money? Is it fame? Is it the opinion of your peers? Is it pleasure? Is it profit? Is it getting whatever you want at all, whatever the cost, no matter who it hurts? What guides you? Now, I know that you would hope that integrity guides you. But here's the challenge. We don't know if integrity guides us until maintaining integrity costs us. Because of this, I hope each and every one of you, each and every one of us will be tempted in such a way to compromise our integrity and that we would respond appropriately. Because in that moment, we discover what is most important to us. In that moment, we discover whether or not our faith is real. In that moment, we discover whether or not we really trust God. Now, we've all said things like, when it comes to being challenged with our integrity, we look at other people and we see some of the things that they're doing and we look at them and we say this to ourselves, or we at least think this to ourselves. We say, I would never do that. I would never do that. I would never be that irresponsible with my body. I would never be that irresponsible with my money. I would never raise my children like that. We say, I would never do that. But if someone was to follow you, if someone was to trace your steps, if there was a camera following you around, what we would see is, I would never do that because I can't believe I did that. There's a that out there that will test you to your core. That if you don't do that, you won't get the job. If you don't do that, you won't get the business deal. If you don't do that, you won't get into the college that you want to go to. If you don't do that, your kids won't get to the school you want them to go to. If you don't do that, your kids won't get anything for Christmas or for their birthday. In that moment, you discover what guides you. So, the question again, what is it that guides you? What guides you? Now, in this verse that we're looking at, the integrity of the upright will guide them. There's an interesting word picture that I want you guys to pay attention to. He says the integrity of the upright. This is an interesting Hebrew word that means the exact same thing that it means in English. It means to stand upright. It means to keep your shoulders straight. It's a posture word. It means to stand upright and look down the road. It means to stand upright and look at later. This is just the opposite of the latter part of the verse that we're getting ready to look at in a minute. The opposite is looking down and looking around. I don't know if you guys watch the presidential debates, but in the presidential debate, they asked a question. I'm not going to even say what the question was, but one of the presidential candidates, they said, whoever feels this way, raise your hand. And one of the presidential candidates looked to the right and looked to the left to see what everybody else was doing. And then he raised his hand. That's a lack of integrity. He says the integrity of the upright, standing straight up, shoulders up, looking down the road, looking at your future, looking at the story you want to tell later. That's what guides you. And so what is it that guides you? Do you look around and see what everyone else is doing? See, this limits your perspective. Because now is immediate. Looking around, looking down, that's immediate. I get what I want immediately. Looking down the road is ultimate. Now is instant gratification. Looking down the road is long-term fulfillment. Now is, I get what I want. Later is, I get what I really want. See, some of you are sacrificing what you really want for what you want right now. What you want right now might be sex. But what you really want is intimacy. A person that respects you, a person that loves you, a person that's going to treat you right. What you want right now is to feel like you felt when you got high last time. What you really want is to be a decent person that your children respect, that the people around you respect, a person of integrity. What you want right now are those tacos with extra cheese and sour cream. But what you really want is a nice body, healthy, a good quality of life. The upright, they stand up tall and they look down the road. But I know what it's like to be inflamed by an appetite. That's how you get hooked. That's how you get caught up. That's how you get locked up. That's how you get kicked out at the bridge. That's how you get kicked out at your mama's house too. That's how you lose your job, when you're inflamed by an appetite. And you give in to that appetite. You get high then, you get drunk then, you get the sex then, you get the money then. But now you're caught up. And nobody can get you out. You've lost your family. You've lost your job. You got it what you wanted right then. You got it right then. But later, down the line, it cost you everything. And so it's fair to say that your posture influences your future. And we all know this to be true. Our greatest regrets, I can guarantee you this, our greatest regrets are associated with the now. Looking down and looking around and settling for the now. Not looking down the road, determining what story you want to tell, what you want your life to look like in the future. Our greatest financial regrets, our greatest relational regrets, our greatest health regrets can all be connected to us looking down and looking around. Trying to do what everybody else is doing, trying to be like everybody else, trying to live like the Babylonians, lacking integrity. It's not how the upright live. The writer of Proverbs says the integrity of the upright will guide them. If your trigger response when you're under pressure is to lie, to deflect, to excuse, to blame, to cover up, that's a clue that you're not guided by integrity. And at this point, if we're not guided by integrity, it's important that we ask ourselves this question. If I'm quick to abandon my integrity, if I'm quick to go back on my word, to abandon my standards, to lie, to cheat, to steal, to change up when I'm around certain people, if I'm quick to abandon my integrity, then what's really driving me? You owe it to yourself to know the answer to this question. What is it that's really driving you? And if you're like most people, and I'm not picking on anybody because we all can fall prey to this. If you're like most people, you're more concerned with looking good than being good. Now, we're almost done. I got a quick question. People like this, what do you think about them? What do you think about people like this? When the fit hits the shan, when they're under pressure, when things are all messed up, when the heat is on, they lie, they blame, they excuse, they cover up, they're always pointing the finger. Do you respect people like this? Do you say to yourself, you know what, one day I want to be like that? It's almost impossible to have a relationship with someone like this. But on the flip side, what do you think about these type of people? When they mess up, they own up. And then they clean up. I'm not going to blame anybody else for my situation. I did this. I'm not going to leave my mess for you to clean up. I'm going to clean it up myself. Don't you respect people like this? So why not become a person like this? I talk to people all the time, and they're in this position of leadership. And I'm like, you're a point leader. We're holding you accountable. When it falls apart, don't blame your team. You got to own it. And don't run when you've made a mess. Run to another relationship. Run to another job. Run to another church. Guess who you'll never be able to outrun? Yourself. Because you're going to follow you everywhere you go. You're just going to keep popping up. And so why not own up to the mess you made? And a person of integrity will be there to clean it up. This is so important. So important. Especially if you're a parent, if you're married, if you're in a dating relationship, if you're in leadership, if you work with a team. Remember this. The health of your relationships, the health and the well-being and the depth of your relationships is contingent upon your integrity, not your infallibility. People will still respect you if you're less than perfect. But they won't respect you if you lack integrity. You can build something real special with the opposite sex, even if you're less than perfect. But you can if you lack integrity. We can make some things happen in this church, in this community, and in the world, even if you're less than perfect. But we cannot if you lack integrity. So the best thing to do is just to own up to the mess that you created. Here's the rest of the verse. The integrity of the upright will guide them, but the crookedness, the bentness, bent over, looking down, looking around, but the crookedness of the treacherous. And this is a very interesting word. This word treacherous means to throw a cover over it. And that's what people who lack integrity do. They try to cover up their mess. They try to manipulate. They'll lie to make you believe that they can be trusted. Throwing a cover over their dirt and pointing out other people's dirt. He says, the integrity of the upright will guide them, but the crookedness of the treacherous will destroy them. You may get what you want in the short term, but eventually it will catch up with you. You can run to another job, you can run to another relationship, you can run to another church, but eventually it will catch up with you. Because it's not them. It's not the job. It's not the church. It's you. And so again, what guides you? What informs your decisions? And as I conclude, I just want to talk real briefly to those of you who are single. Can I talk to the single for a minute? For those of you who are single, if you catch yourself saying, once I get married, that's a sign that you lack integrity. Because once you get married, nothing's going to change until you change. In other words, saying I do doesn't mean that you will do. It just means that you're accountable. There are no superpowers in this ring right here. If I lacked integrity before I said I do, I'm going to lack integrity in the marriage. And it's the same thing for you when you get the bag. Once I get the bag, once I get that job, once I get that house, once I get that car, don't wait until then. Do something about your integrity now. So here's my point. Integrity is a muscle. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets. The people who are guided by integrity, they make better decisions and they live with fewer regrets. You should start exercising your integrity muscle now. So regardless of what stage you find yourself in, your posture informs your future. So you remember how the older people used to tell us when we were younger? Straighten up. Straighten up now. Don't wait. Straighten up now. Allow integrity to be your guide. Stand up tall. Stand up straight. Stand up right. And look down the road and ask yourself, what story do I want to tell? And you know I'm telling the truth. Because this is the world that you want to live in. This is the type of person that you want to marry. This is the type of person that you want your children to marry. You want to work for people like this. You want to be led by people like this. And so don't be a hypocrite. Start exercising your integrity now. And I guarantee you, in the future, later down the line, as you look down the line, when you get there, you won't regret it. This is how we live for God in Babylon.